how they've been reacting to the A&A media trends. What am I doing? This is not the intro.
It's just rambling now.
I haven't done this for 2 weeks. We're going to do that again.
Yeah, so it's good.
Coming up, are advertisers in the US still really ignoring the A&A's transparency report?
And we preview and prepare for a panel discussion around the role of the Chief Media Officer.
Hello and welcome to ID Comms Media Snack, episode 49. Today, an interesting piece of research that's come out from the US asking their advertisers if they have engaged in conversation with their media agencies following the A&A's transparency report being published in June this year.
That's right. And we're going to talk about a panel discussion that we're putting together in 2 weeks' time to discuss and focus on the role of the Chief Media Officer.
Yep. All coming up on Media Snack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich. So first up today, I think the major topic really is again just revisiting the appetite of advertisers in the US to actually do something with the A&A's media transparency work, because the report came out in June.
Right, yeah.
I was in New York the last 2 weeks.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on a good episode
that was all
with Miriam last week. If you haven't seen that, last week David interviewed Head of Marketing at British Gas. Fascinating how they're just rethinking and re-engineering for media internally. So watch that once you've watched this one. But certainly the brands that I spoke to in the US are all aware of the report and are kind of taking some kind of action. But a piece of research from the US trade press that a consultant in the US had conducted asked their client base whether they had engaged their media agency in discussion following the publication of the findings. And 50% said that they hadn't yet spoken to their agency about this. And this is like 4 months after being published. And we've said before, we expected this thing to kind of like explode and loads of people do it. Now, perhaps they're being coy and they're saying, no comment, but if that is in any way indicative of a lack of action, then that's kind of puzzling and perhaps worrying.
And then we have another report that came out of the US a couple of weeks ago that suggests that 2/3 of the top 100 advertisers are preparing to go to review to next year. Whether the A&A report was a catalyst in that or it's simply cyclical, we don't yet know. So these are two kind of conflicting pieces of information that came out. So in the time that you were in the US last week and you spoke to a number of brands and advertisers and agencies, what was your kind of sense of the mood?
There seems to be, you hear different things from different kind of angles, people with different perspectives on it. But there seem to be three types of kind of advertiser at the moment. We're not quite sure, these are not necessarily all of equal sizes. There are those who are either ignoring it or not doing anything, paralysed by confusion or fear or what it might be, just not ready to really engage in this thing. And then there are, of those who have engaged and understood the report, there seem to be two ways of thinking. One is that this is something which needs to become a kind of a challenge on the agency community, and perhaps this might start to become legal. There are starting to be rumours of some brands may be preparing legal action, or which we thought at the time there may be. It might be that senators get excited about this. It may be that the SEC decide to investigate. That's still very much potential for that to happen. There doesn't seem to be a very overwhelming support from brands that I've spoken to go down that route. But it's a possibility. And then there are others who are, I think correctly, seeing the report as the opportunity to kind of level set with their agency. Some are preparing to, claw back if they feel that they've been exposed to some practice and they want some They want to kind of level set on from a commercial perspective. But what those advertisers are doing is perhaps being a bit more pragmatic about it, to say, look, we're all probably kind of guilty of this not working very well historically. Let's work collaboratively a bit more with the agency and get back around the table and start to plan for the future.
Yeah. And that was the reaction that we hoped would happen, right? That, you know, once the furore of the whole report had began to die down, Advertiser and their agency partners, which essentially is what they are, would get together, try and draw a line under it, try and cleanse their own houses, establish proper ways of working moving forward, and then establish a perhaps more transparent, more trust-based relationship moving forward. And that seems to be, I think, the case for the brands that you spoke to.
Yeah, and that was the nature of a. We did a breakfast kind of think tank with a bunch of A&A members at the A&A offices, which was a week before last. That was in New York, and the topic of that was really media auditing, like what you should be doing right now. So there was lots of discussion about how to do that, how to implement that, which was interesting. But I also took the opportunity to think, well, what beyond auditing? So there are some advertisers who, in the US, haven't been auditing their media, haven't been doing compliance, contract compliance audits. Now they're now doing them, that's good. So that's good kind of basics. That in and of itself does not guarantee you of media success. You know, just auditing what you've done in the past doesn't mean that everything is working. It's just good health check. Where I think we need to go is to think about like this post-auditing world. So once people have implemented good governance and good auditing practice, we've then got to start thinking about what's the future of that. And one of the things that I really enjoyed kind of sharing and discussing with them, the A&A members that we met with, was this idea that brands really need an ambition for media. We've talked about it on Media Snack before. And the way that we set that out is this kind of three-part vision. That brands should be much more excited about the opportunity of media. They've got to fix the relationship with their agency, got to know that they can work productively with their agencies. And finally, invest in media knowing that it's going to drive a business outcome. So the whole supply chain has got to be much more accountable. And I think that, as we've discussed, boils down to having a really clear vision and ambition for media. Which, I mean...
And that was Miriam's entire theme from last week's. You know, they've just they're going through a significant transformation. They have just reviewed their media, and what was very apparent was that they were very clear as to the role that media plays in their business, and also the role that their media agencies will be playing in that moving forward. And so, having these conversations in the US with advertisers that perhaps aren't looking to review their media arrangements going into next year, but are looking to recalibrate the relationship with their agencies. Those discussions and being able to be clear as to what those requirements are just as important. Whether you're going to contract renegotiation or discussion with your agencies or looking to review your agencies, you still have to be absolutely clear on what your ambition for media is and what role you want your media agency to play within that.
I mean, the signs are that at the moment that there will be a lot of advertisers putting their media out for tender next year. These things, as we've discussed, are quite cyclical. But a pitch, if it's justified and reasonable to go and take your business to pitch, is the good time. It's a really good opportunity to go and do that level set process with your agency. Redefine the kind of terms. I don't mean the business terms, but the principles on which you're going to operate, and get agencies to come and kind of meet you halfway. Redefine your scope. Move to an incentive-based payment model. Get better quality clauses in your contracts. Define ways of working with the media agency. Define internally governance processes for media. All of these things which now have to be built. Are quite good. The pitch. If you're going to pitch, that's the time to start implementing them. And the pitch prep that we're doing now for projects for next year have got all of those elements obviously built in.
And the other thing that I think is noteworthy is that the agencies themselves are, certainly in the experience that we've had, are far more open to having these forms of discussions, whether it's a coincidence or whether it is as a consequence of the report. But the holding groups and the agencies that we were working with this year as part of our pitch work were far more open and collaborative, and the discussions around concession were far more flexible than they ever were, I think, in the past, in a very professional and considered way. But those discussions, were well conducted, I think. And I think advertisers that do decide to review or renegotiate their terms next year, I would imagine will find the same thing.
So finally this week, so before we kind of wrap up, we've got an event coming up.
We do. I'm really excited about this. We have we are hosting an event which is going to have a panel discussion. The theme of the event is the role of the Chief Media Officer. We've got an extremely prestigious list of panelists. So we've got Martin Mole, who is the European Chief Marketing Officer at Nissan. We have Lindsay Patterson, who is the global CEO of Maxis. And we've got Steve Hyde, who's a well-regarded executive search specialist. We're hosting it at LinkedIn's offices
we are.
On Thursday, the 10th of November. And I think it's going to be a great session. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to moderate the discussion, and I think it's going to be really provocative.
Because I mean, it's so pertinent right now. It comes back to all of these things. Is how much brands are investing in the management of their actual media investment. How much they're actually looking at their media budgets as an investment in growth and governance, applying proper governance over this kind of stuff. We've seen and we've talked about P&G hiring people like Jerry D'Angelo.
That's right.
Other brands now starting to make kind of big bets on some big hitters to look over media. So I think that this will be. It's timely, and I think it's going back to what we're saying. It's great to have a big advertiser, a chief head of marketing, and an agency head, together to talk about something which is kind of very pertinent to the industry. So hopefully an indicator. We want to get agencies and advertisers back again around the table as much as possible. If you're a marketer or in procurement and you want to come and join the event, please leave a comment down below and we'll kind of get back to you with details to sign up. All good for this week?
Very good.
Good.
Glad to have you back.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be back. That's all for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend. I did that on purpose.